Okay. Hello, welcome to the Balance Podcast. I am so excited to introduce my guest today, Dr. Jill Squyres. Groubert, am I saying that right?
Yes, you are. Actually, it's Groubert.
Groubert, because you
like
just
Bert.
got married.
Right. Bert and Ernie. Groubert.
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 Okay, got it. And I was just thinking, how long have we known each other? Almost 20 years?
I think it's over 20 years.
Over
because
20.
Were you an intern at the VA when I was there?
Yes, I was.
Yes. So
Over
it's that
20
long.
years.
Over 20 years. Yes.
Wow. And then, so did you go from the VA into private practice?
I did. I was not really good civil service material, honestly. A little too much maybe free spirit.
I understood, because I fall in that same. I mean, I've done some contract work in civil service, and private practice is a better fit for my personality.
Yes, it was better fit for me also. And it was a good time in life. My children were old enough that they weren't getting sick all the time, or I wasn't having to leave work, because working at the VA, where you could just say, I got to go, worked great. When you're in private practice, you can't do that.
Right.
So the timing worked out really well. And San Antonio needed more people in private practice. So.
Mm-hmm. And I'm grateful. I remember when I started in private practice, you shared some of your private practice forms and let me come meet with you. And I'm grateful for that. How has it been? I guess what's it been? I guess the evolution of private practice from starting out in San Antonio, moving to Colorado. What's it been like over the past 20 plus years?
It's been a very interesting journey. Going from working in a hospital to being in private practice was challenging. You know, things like I had to get an office and I had to get furniture and figure out if I needed household help. And when I first started my practice, there was not good software to help you. So I actually had to use like a paper billing service to do my billing.
Like with the HCFA forms?
Yes. This was before, Therapist Helper had come out. It was really expensive. And eventually I got that. Mm-hmm. But it was very primitive in a way. Mm-hmm. And I hadn't trained in San Antonio. So even though I'd been at the VA, it was kind of challenging to network and get my name out. And I started out by getting on insurance panels that didn't particularly pay very well, but that filled my schedule. And then over time, I got more selective. And I started doing more in the community. I was president of BCPA, as you were, right?
Yes. Yeah. After you. Yes.
And that I think helped with, sort of visibility and opportunities. Mm-hmm. I was never really at home in San Antonio. I'm from New York and California. I always felt a little bit like an expat. And I started doing online work partly because Medicare approved online sessions for people with multiple sclerosis. It was dangerous for some of them.
Yeah.
This was in 2010. And because I worked on a spinal cord injury unit, mm-hmm. This was a specialty area that I was getting referrals in. And I had a couple of people who just couldn't go out when it was above, 90 or 95 degrees. The amount doesn't matter.
Which would be the whole summer.
Which would be the whole summer.
Yeah.
And we got special approval from Medicare. And that's when I realized, wow, if I can do online work, I could live anywhere. Where do I want to live? I'll move to Vail.
So you got the idea 10 years before the rest of the world.
Yes. Well, I'd also put myself through graduate school as a programmer and statistician. So I've always been a techie person anyway.
Right.
But I just loved doing things on the computer. And as soon as we started coming out with Skype and FaceTime and these different formats, Zoom wasn't around back then. HIPAA compliance for your telehealth format was not even a concept when I first started doing this. But I thought, there's a lot of people I really like in San Antonio. I just don't really like it here. My son is graduating from high school. We don't have to have a tie. And my daughter was having some trouble. And Churchill is a really big school. And we were worried about her going to a school that big. So moving to Eagle, the high school had 200 kids per class.
Wow.
So it was a better fit for her. And being somebody who'd always lived in an urban setting, I thought it would be fun to live in the mountains. What I thought was that all my clients would still be in Texas. So I got my Colorado license because at that time you're supposed to be licensed where you were situated and where you were practicing. And what I didn't realize is that Eagle County had almost no psychologists. I believe there were 4, and it's a county of 55,000 people. because
Wow, so kind of niche, right place at the right time.
it's a hard place to live. It's isolated, it's expensive, and then it's also a resort community. So it was a little bit of an afterthought. I got a house where the home office was in the front,
Mhm.
and I got my license and I started getting involved in the community. And within 6 months, I didn't need to have any clients from Texas at all.
So for
because-
you, it's really not marketing, it's visibility, and it sort of
Right.
happened naturally.
Right.
mean, And what would you recommend to people out there starting a practice or marketing, like giving workshops or like making?
Well, one thing I would say, like, network at things in your community that matter. So like I got involved in Speak Up, Reach Out. This is Suicide Prevention Coalition of Eagle County, because suicide in the mountains is a terrible problem. And people would say, oh, have you always been really interested in preventing suicide? And well, generally, of course, but not a specific attitude. But the community I moved to, that was a really big issue. So I got involved. That got me visibility. It also helped me meet people, you know, like the police chiefs. And I mean, it was interesting being in a small town because there weren't even a lot of doctors, let alone psychologists. So I didn't get to network with psychologists, but it was like I was the psychologist in Eagle. Yeah, there was a movie theater, a psychologist, a supermarket.
Right.
And I mean, the town has 6,000 people. It's not that tiny. But because mental health had really been a problem, mental health treatment had been a problem.
Or neglected.
It was pretty, it actually was easier in a way to network there than he'd been in San Antonio, where, as I said, I hadn't trained. So I'd never networked with all the people you meet when you're training, even though obviously working at the VA. But the VA is its own microcosm. So I would say get involved in your community, go to, you know, community events, go to parades. I mean, you don't have to advertise yourself.
Right.
But
Just
meet people.
Be visible, be seen.
And tell people you're a psychologist. And I think it's good to have some, you know, funny stories about people. That's like the psychologist in Eagle. So that when people meet you, they're not intimidated by the fact that you're a psychologist.
Right.
I think having a Facebook page and cultivating local people to look at your page. And I'm not super selective in my Facebook friends. I mean, I don't accept anybody as a friend. But when I first moved to Eagle, like anybody I met who sent me a friend request, I would accept. And I ended up connecting with a lot of people through Facebook, which would also tell me about events going into my area.
Now, I know you've done a TED Talk. That's one of the things that I admire very much. Tell us about that process and how you achieved that.
Well, that was another thing with connecting with people. I called my first year in Colorado my year of saying yes. So any opportunity or anything I learned about, my practice wasn't completely full, and I'd say, sure, it's the middle of the day. I'll go do that. There's a fundraiser. I'll go to the fundraiser. There's a women's event or a book club. So I did a lot of different things that were interesting, but I've always been very interested in TED Talks. I lived in Long Beach when the first TED conference was there. Not that I went, but I was actually aware of it. And there was a thing in the Vail Daily about somebody was hosting a watch party for TEDx women or TED women. And I thought I was going to like a restaurant or something. It turned out to be somebody's house, and that was a little intimidating. And I frankly almost left. It was a very nice house in a very nice neighborhood. And I thought, no, you know, you're here, you've taken time off. And the person who was hosting it was Kat Haber, who loves everything TED. And so did I. So she did TEDx Women, and I volunteered. And sort of with BCPA, I started out as treasurer because I'm a math geek. I was the treasurer for TEDx Women. And then after we did TEDx Women, which was exciting and fun, we were sort of tallying up the final accounting. And I said, well, I'd like to do a TED Talk. It's been my dream ever since I learned about it. And Kat said, well, you don't get to just do one because you volunteered. Like, you have to pitch it to me.
You need to qualify. Yeah.
Yes. And I said, well, I'd like to do one about the loneliness epidemic. And she said, that's important, but you know what? It's just not interesting enough. And do you have a plan B, a second topic? And I said, well, I haven't developed it too well, but I was thinking about talking about breaking up with my best friend of 30 years. And she said, that's it.
That's juicy. That has teeth.
Yes, that people will be interested. The whole idea is people have to be interested in that. It just can't be something they can go read a book chapter about.
Right.
And we had 9 minutes. We spent a year where we had to do meetings with all the people who were going to do TEDx Vail that year. And we practiced our talks and we had to get feedback. It was hours of work, and mine was 9 minutes and 1 second. And I was really excited about that. The other thing that's incredibly difficult about a TED Talk, most people don't know, is you have to memorize it. There's no cue cards.
Oh.
They don't like words on your slides, so you can't look at your slide for reference. And in fact, I couldn't even see my slides because they were behind me and there was no
9 minutes is a long time.
long time, and I can still see in the talk when I knew I wasn't going to forget anything. Other people can't see it, but I know, because it's in a couple of different sections. And when I get to the last section, it's like, oh, good, I'm not going to forget, because one person forgot half their talk.
Oh, that's embarrassing.
It was horrible. There was nothing you can do. There's nobody with cue cards. But it was a really good experience and very challenging. And then I thought, if I get 500 views, like, I'll be ecstatic. That means somebody besides my friends and my family watched it. And then I just kept seeing, I didn't do that much to promote it besides my Facebook page and Twitter feed. And I just kept watching. And now I'm up over 160,000 views.
That's terrific.
So I've touched that many people's lives.
Yeah. Well, speaking of marketing or touching lives, tell us about your book that I know that you launched this year.
Yes. So the way I wrote my book is a little different from how most people write books. I wanted to write. Making the time for it, of course, has been really difficult. But instead, like, I did a blog. I mean, I haven't been blogging that much lately, but I would do my blog, and I would also work with, when I was president of BCPA, the news called me to do a story. Fox 31 News, San Antonio, I guess. And I did a few news stories, and that got me some visibility. And then I did some stories with the San Antonio Express News. On cell phone use, and parenting, and dealing with grief. When I got to Eagle, I started writing for the Vail Daily. I just started submitting columns and they published them. And then when I did my TED Talk, I was on TV in Denver. One of the big news stations did a story on it. And there was a full page spread, a full page article in the Denver Post in the lifestyle section. So I started getting calls from writers from magazines. I got to do a Cosmo quiz at one point, but I started doing a bunch of articles with women's health. So that got me some connections, and I changed my LinkedIn for psychologist, speaker, writer. Okay. And I'd always planned to write books. I'd like to write fiction too, but I got this email that I thought was junk from a publisher. And they said,
okay, I was going to ask, how'd you find your publisher? They found you.
They found me. And they said, we would like to pay you to write a book. And I sent it right to junk. I thought it was, trash. Yeah. And they were very persistent. And finally they said, we saw on LinkedIn that you're a writer and a psychologist, and that's what we're looking for. And would you please have a brief phone call with us? So the publisher is Rockridge Press. And what they're doing is they're looking for books that people are searching for and can't find. They have an expert write an outline, and then they hire somebody to write the book. Okay. So I'm not actually getting royalties. I was paid, and it was some. I was paid some up front, and I had an editor, and it was a very rigorous writing schedule, ridiculously hard. On top of my work.
How many hours a day? Writing a couple hours a day, a chapter a month, a chapter.
It was 3,500 words a week.
Okay, got it.
That was pretty much every waking minute where I wasn't working, where I wasn't with clients. And some nights I'd stay
all your weekends,
my whole weekend, sometimes 3 or 4 in the morning, because I write this at night. And we went to San Antonio for Thanksgiving, and the whole time I actually felt guilty because I had to turn in a chapter on Monday, and it was the only time during the process, which only went from mid-September till the end of December.
So it was quick. It was over quickly.
It was over quickly. Intense. But I had to turn stuff in, and they were not especially gentle about, you have a deadline and you have to meet it. which was good for me. It provided a lot of structure,
Mhm.
and it was a good topic for me. I didn't have to do a ton of research because I use most of the things that I work on when I'm working with couples anyway.
Mhm.
And I just relished the idea of helping people build strong relationships, not waiting for your relationship to get bad. And I would submit the chapters. I didn't need a lot of edits, which I'm very proud of. I changed a couple of the exercises, but other than that, they really liked my writing and the way I did it. And
Well, and they must have already liked your writing style. I mean, they found you, they probably read a bunch of your articles
right,
and picked you.
right,
So then, and all the marketing that you did, like, I mean, you took your book on your honeymoon and your book
right.
in Paris, and that's marketing for them. I mean, for you as a professional.
Well, it's
But-
marketing for me as a professional. The book was supposed to come out April 22nd, and we'd actually got married in August, but I wanted to go to Paris in spring. So we thought, okay, April 22nd, everything is on a really tight schedule. We'll go on our honeymoon on April 30th because they wanted me to be available for things the day the book was published. And one of the reasons I ended up bringing it with me is the book was published while I was away.
Oh, I did not know the
Yeah.
story behind the story.
Yes, so it was published May 3rd, and Paris is the city of love. So it wasn't totally fun having my book in my backpack all the time because, you know, I need an umbrella and my raincoat and snacks and stuff.
And maybe
but
you just wanted to be with your husband. Yeah,
Right.
exploring Paris.
Right. But we found places that were really cool. Like there's this wall of love and, you know, where this would
Well,
be
there
a
was
really,
something with a lock, like
yes. So
that stuck out to me.
in Paris, one of the things that people have traditionally done is to go to the Pont des Beaux-Arts, which is the bridge of beautiful arts, I guess. It's near the museums, and you put a lock on the bridge, and that's cementing your love.
So you buy a lock and go.
You buy a lock and you put it on the bridge. So, and my husband had actually been to Paris quite a bit before. He did a semester of law school in Europe, and he loved going to Europe. So he was like, we have to do this. So while we were there, we did that. Now, the sad thing is that there were so many locks on the bridge that it was compromising the structural integrity of the bridge.
There has to be a physical limit.
So they actually don't keep them permanently anymore. But what mattered to us was that we got to, you know, put the lock on the bridge and, you know, you put your names on it. And we were just wondering if the same people like clean them off and resell them. But
right.
It was, you know, it just felt like a really, really nice way to celebrate our honeymoon.
Yeah, I love that. Yeah. Well, what tips do you have on work-life balance? I mean, you've been in a career that has evolved with you, you know, with your children's needs and your needs.
Right.
So what are your thoughts on work-life balance?
When you have little kids, it's really challenging. You know, because your kids may keep you up, they may get sick, they have activities. I felt a lot of pressure when they were little, when there'd be school activities, and I felt like I couldn't leave to go to them, and that was hard. But
you mean just a Valentine's party in first grade?
Exactly, exactly. But my kids were like really understanding, and every year at Thanksgiving we go around and we say what we're thankful for, and they would say we're thankful for mommy's clients because they give us a nice life.
So they understood the concept. You know, mommy goes to work and makes money, and this is how we
get our life.
They understood that right early on, not taking it for granted.
Exactly. So they never took it for granted. And as they got older, of course, it got easier. I was the primary wage earner in our family also. So it's like I would work until I was done with my work. It wasn't like, oh, the kids are getting home from school, I need to get home. And that was a hard decision because a lot of other mothers will leave, you know, when school day is ending, and they would leave more than I would. But
it's difficult. I mean, especially in a private practice. I mean, it's difficult to have it all done between 9 and 3.
Exactly.
I mean, some of the prime hours are between 3 and 6, and if you're going to work a couple evenings or a Saturday morning, I mean, that's not realistic with everybody else's schedule.
Exactly. So while I was in practice in San Antonio, I wouldn't bring anything home. I would just get everything done, go home, and then be at home. And we're kind of night owls anyway, even my kids. So it's not like they want dinner right at 6. So we'd usually eat dinner about 7:30 or even 8 sometimes. And I would set them up for homework. I would say, yeah, I'm not going to college with you. You need to do your own homework. You could ask for
And let's
help.
start that now.
We're starting that now. And they all actually learned it, which was good. And then my weekends, I never worked on the weekends. So my weekends were always my family time. When I moved to Eagle, it got a little trickier though, because I worked out of my house to begin with. And when you work from your house, it's much harder to draw that line between
Right, the boundaries are
family
different.
and work. So that I had to get a lot more proactive about. And then my family also had to deal with the fact that I was working mostly online, but a few people in the house. And you got to make sure the kitchen's clean and you don't have fish for dinner so that the
Right.
house smells like leftovers.
Mhm.
And eventually I got an office in town because that was just kind of unpleasant, but I always had a home office where I could see
Do you
people.
prefer in person, or do you like the virtual, or do you like a hybrid, a combination?
I'd be happy working only online.
Okay.
Most people say they prefer a balance, or I find when you work online, you see a really different window into people's lives. And they also actually see a different window into my life. My husband brings me a cup of tea, and I'm the kind of therapist where I say hi,
Oh, right. And then you can see them in their living room or in their bedroom or in their office or in their car. I mean, it
you
is a
meet
different window.
you meet their kids, their pets,
dog.
they show you stuff. You see what their home is like. If they're talking about chaos, you actually see the chaos, or in most cases they get to show you their taste or something. Here's a painting I'm doing right now, or
Right.
let me take you outside and show you my tomatoes on my garden.
Yeah. Well, yeah, and I've had fun with kids. They like to show you their toys or their things.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And then just meeting people's extended families is really nice too. And their children even will, hi, Dr. Jill. And
Yeah, wonderful. All right. Well, thank you so much for taking the time. How can people find you if they want to locate you on?
the best thing is to Google search. You could search under both Jill Squyres or Jill Squyres Groubert, because changing my name at this stage of life has been a little tricky, but I like having the same name as my husband. And I finally moved up in the alphabet. I have a website. It's drjillpsychologist.com. I have a professional Facebook page, which is still Jill Squyres, PhD. I'm also on Twitter. And there's the main ways to seek me out.
Okay, no Instagram.
I have Instagram, but I just have to draw the limit. I can't.
Yeah, I understood. Well, then I guess LinkedIn too. You're on LinkedIn.
Yes, and I'm on LinkedIn also. So Facebook is my favorite. It has been ever since it came out. I'll tweet occasionally, and I occasionally try to put something on Instagram. But you could spend your whole life on social media and not having work-life balance.
Right, and not interact.
Yeah, exactly.
Very good. All right. Well, thank you so much.
You're welcome. It was really nice to see you.